Okay, so while I'm telling you about some of the odd things that have happened in the Greenwater area here, and in years past, things that I experienced before I started making videos, before I realized the Bigfoots were here, yeah, there's a couple of events that happened. Well, one just right out here on the highway. This is where the 70 road turns off 410, and the other is up the highway about a half a mile or so that I'm going to get to. But first I'm going to share something with you from the late 80s that's not specifically Bigfoot related, but it's pretty darn weird. So back in the late 80s, I was up on top of that mountain up there watching equipment. It's kind of socked in right now. You can't see it very well, but I was up there for the whole summer just as watchman, night watchman. And it was middle of a day in August, beautiful, clear, sunny, warm day. And I was on my way back to the job site. And just behind these trees back here at the base of that mountain, I came around a corner on the logging road and I saw something I had never seen before, never have since, and I can't explain. And like I said, it's not exactly Bigfoot related, but it's pretty weird. So I'm going to drive up there to that location and I'll tell you about what happened. Okay, so here's what happened. I was coming up. It was a nice sunny summer day, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had to get back to the job site before the loggers left, so I probably had about an hour to spare. Coming up the road right there, I got to right about here, and I had to stop. There were rabbits everywhere. This entire corner of the road, off into the trees as far as I could see. This was more than 25 years ago. This was all very small alders, very short vegetation in here. All these trees hadn't grown up like this. So I could see quite some distance back into the woods in every direction. But the thing was, there were so many rabbits that I couldn't see the road. I couldn't see the ground. There were big rabbits. There were little rabbits. They were all just hopping and bouncing around. They didn't appear to be moving in any particular direction. They were just as far as the eye could see. Okay, so I forgot to mention that after watching the rabbits for several minutes, I did continue up the road very slowly, very carefully. They seemed to part in front of the truck and let me go through. And it was just up around the bend on the other side where I came out of them and there were no more rabbits. That was where the other edge of the swarm was. I knew there were logging trucks coming down, and I was picturing a truck coming around this bend, at full speed and hitting these rabbits, and it would just be one big slick of rabbits. So I got on the CB and I told him up at the top, that be careful on this corner, that there's rabbits everywhere. It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. And they took the warning, and of course, 20 minutes later, when the truck that was coming down got to this spot, he got on the radio and kind of made me feel like an idiot because he says there's like 3 rabbits on the side of the road. Yeah, so that's kind of always been my rabbit story that I have shared many, many times to my friends over the years, and nobody ever believed me. It was very frustrating because it was really an amazing sight. There were literally thousands, if not millions, of rabbits in this little spot in the forest, so thick you couldn't see the ground, and nobody would believe me. And my friend Shirley that I worked with at the tavern, she gave me the worst time about it over anybody. She'd bring it up all the time. It's like, it's like Barb's rabbit story, just picking on me. And then one day, it's been about 10 years now, she was working at the bar, and she called me up. She said she'd heard something that she couldn't believe, that she felt she owed me an apology. She said that there were 2 strangers that were sitting at the bar having a conversation, and she was just kind of listening in while she was going about her work. And she said the one guy was trying to convince the other guy that he had been out on one of these Forest Service roads and had come around a bend and had seen rabbits everywhere. Rabbits, just big ones, little ones, hopping, bouncing, covering the road. You couldn't see the ground. And she said it stopped her in her tracks when she heard this guy trying to tell the other guy about what he'd seen. And of course, the other guy didn't believe him. which she thought was just like the perfect mirror image of all the times that I had tried to explain to her that that story was real, and she hadn't believed me. And, you know, one of the things I always told her was, seriously, you know, after 20 years, do you really think I'm not going to get around to the punchline on this joke? You know, it happened. It was real. I'm not kidding here, okay? So before Shirley passed away, you know, that was one of the things that I was very happy that, you know, we finally had the conclusion on. We finally got to the point where she believed me, and that was only because she had heard somebody else telling the exact same story. Now, I realize this probably is not Bigfoot related in any way. It's just one of those strange, bizarre things that happens in the woods. But, yeah, so that's my rabbit story. And, yeah, we're going to go back down to the highway, and I'm going to tell you some other Bigfoot type related stuff. Right here, this is the turn off to the 70 road right over there. And I'm telling you about an experience from approximately 10 years ago. It was late one night, coming down the highway, and I got right on this bend right up in here, and I could have swore I hit a rabbit. And yeah, I felt pretty bad about it. I went on down the highway and thinking that maybe it was still alive and the poor thing was laying there suffering, which is just the kind of thing I would worry about. I got down to the community center and I turned around and came back to check. Well, as I'm coming back up the highway, I got my high beams on, and I'm probably about into where that car is there, coming up, and I can see right in here, right at the very end of my headlights, there was what looked like something very large, just massive, but flat on the ground, squiggling off the road, just right here, just like flat, squiggling. And I saw that, and it was just a glimmer in the shadows at the end of my headlights, and I wasn't really sure what I had seen. Like I said, it was flat on the ground. It was moving very fast. It was large. It was dark. I got up to this spot where I expected to see the rabbit. There was no rabbit here. And yeah, I never associated that with Bigfoot at the time, but several years later, I heard a report from Ocean Shores on the BFRO website. So the report came from not far from Sandy's place down there at the ocean, of an elderly man who had come across a Sasquatch sleeping in the bushes back behind his house. And he described it, when it left the area, it crawled away. And the way he described it, as it squiggled like a snake on all fours when it crawled away. And immediately when I heard that, I thought of this account. And you know, I can't say this was a Bigfoot out here took the rabbit that night, but you never know. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about another experience that I had on the highway. We are about, well, maybe half a mile farther up than from the 70 road where I was just telling you about what I saw squiggle off the road. So this was a little more recent. This was a couple of nights after the earthquake and tsunami hit Japan. And I had never seen tsunami footage like that before. It was Saturday, and I saw that for the first time, and well, I was just shocked and horrified. And when I came down the highway that night, my mind was not on the highway or what was out here. My mind was 1,000 miles away in Japan. Okay, so sorry about the little breaks. I'm trying to get this done in between traffic. So anyway, what happened? That bend on the highway there, I came around it. I had my high beams on, and like I said, I wasn't thinking anything about the road. My mind was totally on what I had seen, the footage of the tsunami. So I come around that corner there, and at the end of my headlights, I'm coming down here, at the end of my headlights, just right out in here, at the edge of the road on the far side, I saw what appeared to be a very tall, very thin person wearing a huge orange jacket. And at the time, my mind was picturing like Letterman's jacket, you know, with the big puffy sleeves, because it was very broad across the shoulders and chest, and the arms seemed to be very puffy. But at the waist level, it became extremely narrow, and it was very tall, and it turned and it took one step and was gone into the trees. And like I said, I wasn't thinking about it at all, you know, what was on the highway. My mind was totally on the tsunami. So by the time I realized I had seen something, it was already gone. And I was left thinking to myself, did I see that? Was that real? And the thoughts that went through my head were in this order. It was like, oh my God, that guy was tall. And I was like, holy cow, that guy was skinny. And then it was that a guy? So, like I said, it was far enough down the highway at the end of my headlights, and I was not paying attention when I first saw it. It was after it was gone that I realized that something had been there, and I started playing it back in my mind. And it occurred to me that maybe it was not just your average guy, because normally if there's somebody out here on the highway in the middle of the night standing on the edge of the road, they're not diving into the trees, they're looking for a ride. And also, I've seen elk and other things alongside the highway. This individual was considerably taller than any elk standing beside the road. Now, this is one of those things that, you know, I never really counted as a real sighting because I just did not know. And this was also, you know, a few years before I had my sighting of the big guy chasing the elk. And, you know, I thought to myself, it could have been a Sasquatch, but, you know, I really didn't believe it at the time. And now looking back, you know, it had, like I said, the sleeves or arms appeared orange in the headlights, but, you know, could that be the auburn one that's been seen around? The kind of orangish tint, like what was caught in Juanita's trail cam at the cabin, or was looking in the window at Chris. Could that have been the same individual? And yeah, I told that to a member of the BFRO, and they suggested that possibly they were picking up what was on my mind from that tsunami. That was maybe how they were keeping in touch with what had happened. You know, I can't say any of this is for fact, but it's something to think about.